Okay, this last video is about a topic called what we call creeping inflation and hyperinflation. And for our examples here, we're looking at Venezuela and South Africa and Germany. Always it's just good to have a little historical context or just understanding. Why does Germany not start? Why don't they have any data going back before 1992? I wonder what that's about. Oh, right, because they were split into East and West Germany prior to that. So the the inflation numbers that would be there, you can't like mix them. So just a little context there. Once again, we're going to go look at this diagram and play around, or this graph and play around with it for just a second. But what you should notice coming out of that is that both South Africa, which is in purple in the middle, and Germany, which is in red at the bottom, their inflation rates seem to be much lower than Venezuela. We see that Venezuela's is, I think my face is in the way there. Venezuela's is, somewhere, kind of 24%, a high up here of 99% in 1996. So they've had a lot of price volatility. All of these you would pretty much consider to be what we call creeping inflation. That is, that prices, for South Africa going up by, kind of their highest one is in here in 2008. Prices going up by 11%, it's uncomfortable, but it's not something that's going to break the economy and force the economy to have to reboot and totally cause economic problems in the country. Again, it's uncomfortable. People don't like it when prices go up. But keep in mind that one of those prices is the price of labor. So labor prices are probably going up at around the same rate. So anyway, that's that. And, obviously something like 2.29, what we see from Germany, that would be optimal. That's a nice low rate of inflation. We see even in 2009, following the global financial crisis, they still had some positive increase in inflation. And that, again, that tends to be good. But you may have noticed that we've cut off at 2010, and let me just start dragging a little bit to show what begins to happen in Venezuela. So now, and once again, let's get my pretty face out of the way. Now what we see is things begin to change quite drastically in Venezuela. If we look at that top number, that goes from 21%, to 62, to 121, to 254% in 2016, and that's the most recent number. So that's definitely starting to get us into the realm of what we might call hyperinflation. And hyperinflation is when the economy fully breaks down. But we've got better examples. So let's go and look at them for just a second. So in this example, we're looking at, I think, Venezuela, South Africa, and Zimbabwe. I chose South Africa just because, it's close to Zimbabwe. So again, here on the y-axis, we see that we're looking at about, kind of 4%. Do note I have a very tight range of dates here. This is 1968 to 1970. And as we begin to expand this, again, in all three of them, this is all what we would call creeping inflation at this point. No big deal. Not the worst thing in the world. But as we begin to expand them, what we see, just kind of let the numbers adjust here, they all kind of go through some problems, and we see this kind of begin in 1973. Well, we'll talk about this more, but this is what's known as the Great Inflation. And the Great Inflation is largely over fuel prices, oil prices changing, coming out of the Middle East. So we see that throughout the world, not just in these three countries. So there's nothing weird yet here. But then as we continue to go, and I don't want to give away the end of the story, but we start to see, okay, so in 1988, something's going crazy over here, and that's the blue one. That's Venezuela. So that's some of the things that we talked about earlier in the video. And again, we notice that Zimbabwe and South Africa, Venezuela's got its trouble going through here, but Zimbabwe and South Africa, these two at the bottom, seem to be doing all right. We'll see, of course, that that's going to begin to change in Zimbabwe. And as we get in, so Zimbabwe is the green line in the middle, teal, I don't know. As we start to get into the 2000s, we start to notice that it just kind of goes crazy. So we see one peak here where in 2003, the rate of inflation was 431%. So that's beyond uncomfortable, right? Now we have real problems where prices of all goods have gone up by 4 times. So a loaf of bread that might have cost $1 Zim dollar is now going to cost 5 Zim dollars, something like that. And that's not good. But we're not done there yet. What we'll see with Zim, they went through the worst modern hyperinflation that we've ever seen. And you see, just as I move that, right, it just flattens the rest of the graph. So if we take it to here, so we've got, so Zim again is this bottom number, so 282, 302, 1,096, and then their highest recorded rate of inflation in 2007 was 24,411%. So at that point, your economy's broken, and if I drag it forward, if I go a few more years in the future, you see they stop even giving data on Zim because basically their economy is broken and the Zim dollar that they were denominated in didn't exist anymore. So once you get into the realm of hyperinflation, your economy is going to be broken. Creeping inflation is okay and maybe even desirable because it might prevent inflation or negative economic growth, like I said in a past video. But hyperinflation is going to be a problem. And once that happens, there's no coming back. You're going to have to totally reboot the system. And we'll talk about that a lot in class.